Hey there, we're the West Lot Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Scouspo.
A lot to talk about tonight. Game against Ohio State went a lot of different ways, and we'll really dive into that. We got some basketball.
Sammy, would you say this is the Let's Play 2 equivalent of the podcast?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, we'll try to keep it tight tonight, but it's hard to say. And there really is a lot to cover, and with the Wrigley Field of it all. But just wanted to kind of mention off the top a couple housekeeping items. We are still running our contest for if you submit a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice and send us a screenshot, you'll be entered into a drawing to potentially win a couple tickets to see the men's basketball squad at a future game. So just wanted to mention that right off the top.
Just a reminder that the intent here, this really helps other Northwestern fans find our podcast. This isn't about, we don't get, we're not getting some sort of payment or like, obviously we want people to listen and join in and support our show, et cetera. But it's about spreading the Northwestern love.
Definitely. I guess that's the biggest housekeeping news off the top. Like I say, a lot to cover tonight. Field hockey, making it to the Final Four. We will dive into that pretty deep. We've got basketball to talk about. But right off the top, I mean, we do need to talk about this Ohio State game. John, you and I did not go to the game. We, I guess had a couple different opportunities, but I know for myself, I wasn't overly excited about, going to Wrigley Field in what I figured was just going to be primarily red, and watching it on TV, it definitely did seem like it was primarily red, and, watch us potentially get our butts kicked. But, sitting there watching it on TV, the first quarter, 0-0 in the first, and like in the second quarter when we were really making it, like we took the lead, it was 7-7, and then kind of the wheels fell off with the bad snap on the punt, and which could have been may have been a safe, you could have gotten safety out of that, I don't know, but then Ohio State just scores and goes up 2-3 scores, and boom coming out of halftime they get another one, and it's sort of off to the races from there. But I think right off the top, there are definitely some positives to take away from this game, primarily I think on the offensive side of things.
Well, before we get into the details there, I think it's just important to like catalog the moment of when we thought this game was going to be rough. I think even in the most optimistic of scenarios, one of the things we're going to talk about, I think we all, like Ohio State, once they figured it out, they were pretty much unstoppable. But the first quarter and a half of this game, like Northwestern had not just Big Ten, nation on notice, but a lot of folks on notice of like, whoa, what is going on? And it wasn't something fluky. It wasn't something crazy, 92-yard touchdown drive, et cetera. Like we were doing some things, and it's probably the most excitement that has been prevalent around this program since the Indiana game. And I like the final score, and it doesn't take that away. I think you're going to hear, we've got some, there's a range of outcomes of what could happen as we cast this forward in the next couple weeks. But, that, much like some prior games we've had against Ohio State, where there's been moments of, oh man, like, the Ohio State fans are probably feeling it a little bit.
Yeah, we've had some talk about this off the pod, et cetera, and there is certainly a huge part of it, and we talked about it immediately after the game, like on Twitter, sort of like one way or another, where it's like, if you want to go down the road of this team, which has been absolutely kneecapped by errors at different times in terms of execution and things going wrong all season, could not have been more trademark kneecapped by errors than they were in this game. As we've talked about, and I think you talked about it last week, Scuzz, it's like, or maybe the week before, a lot of times it's not the same thing popping up. Sometimes it is, right? And sometimes, like, we'll only have a couple of penalties. We only had a couple penalties in this game after a week when I think we had 9 against Purdue. So there's certain things that come and go, and sometimes it's coaching decisions. We had that one week where like the clock management was so poor, but you made the point, Scuzz, that like that wasn't a thing that had ever been a problem prior to that week. But it feels like we're playing whack-a-mole a lot of the time sometimes, and that there's always something going on. And you had these two plays, two snaps, back-to-back plays by two different players that had a absolutely massive impact on this game. And for a lot of people, it's like, there you go. And you look at, like, that came right on the heels of our 92-yard drive, and you look and you're like, everything kind of fell apart after that. It certainly felt that way, and it kind of played out that way too.
I do want to mention, though, I mean, before we, kind of dive into that, I want to throw some flowers, a little pirate booty, at Zach Lujan. I mean, the game plan that he had coming into this game.
It's not even even or. Like, that's exactly where we should be going anyway.
Like,
because that's the whole other piece of this. And it's huge, and I just want to hammer it like a drum here. Because I know a lot of you, and there's this whole side discussion that we were debating, even like the degree to which we're going to get into it. Like, there's the whole thing of like, this was our homecoming, but it didn't feel like a homecoming, and there was kind of a pallor hanging over this with us seeing like all these Buckeye fans on Big Ten, on the Big Ten Network and everything, and et cetera, et cetera. It is so important that you understand, right? Okay, if you can lock in on anything, you need to lock in on that 92-yard drive, which, first of all, is our best moment offensively of the season.
I want to go back before that, the first drive of the game, which was a long, sustained drive. Yes, it ended with a turnover in the red zone, but the whole game plan was to slow it down, to limit possessions, and to control the ball. And in the first half, we did that. And the 92-yard drive that you were talking about started. I mean, it's a 92-yard drive. We started on our own 8-yard line, and we just marched it down the field methodically. The first drive was the exact same thing, marching it down the field methodically. And, that was just incredible to watch.
It was. And the huge thing, though, and this is that we really want to hammer this home. And this is the whole opposite to the other part that we're talking about. And it's the part that I like. Mileage varies within the Pirates on exactly how much difference this is going to make. And at the end of the day, we're going to see. But there are things that happen in this game that have massive bearing on Michigan in a positive way. And the only question is degrees. And the short of it is, if you dig into that 92-yard drive, and as Sam said, the drive that came before it, and the drive, our first drive to start the second half, it's not just that Northwestern across those three drives put up like in the neighborhood of 200 yards or just under 200 yards against the best defense in the country by a good bit. It's how. And the easiest way to explain it is, for the first time, it took 10 friggin' games for us to get here. But we have a hammer play, a money play that works. And Ohio State never figured it out in this game. And the tenor of the game really never developed to a point where in the second half they were trying to figure it out or we were trying to run it, because this game was already, because of what their offense and because of different things that happened. By the time we touched the ball for the second time in the second half, this game was 31-7, and that was pretty much all she wrote. But on that 92-yard drive, and basically throughout the entire play calling of the first half and into our first drive of the second half, we had a hammer play, the delay draw. And this play, Ohio State simply never figured it out. They never figured out how to deal with it. It looks absolutely beautiful every time we run it on film, which is about 5 times. And it completely affected everything else that happened with our offense in the first half. And you can look at that 92-yard drive. First of all, it's the first play we run of the game. We run delay draw, first play of the game right off the bat. That is a tone setter. We have talked for weeks about how all of these teams know Jack Lausch can run. He's really fast, and he looks really fast. He accelerates really quickly.
The announcers remind us of this every game, and then we're like, why isn't he running?
Right, exactly. And we have talked about this whole odyssey that we have been out in this desert with the read option because Lausch just won't give it on the read option. Of course, like, this is a dead horse. We talked about this ad nauseum, right? We talked about it Wisconsin. We talked about it Iowa. And I think eventually Zach Lujan arrived at where I think we're all arriving at this perfect understanding, which is basically like Jack Lausch is Superman at leaving the pocket. And his kryptonite is that if you give him any other option than that, he will choose the other option. It's this amazing thing, but that's what it is. And Lujan finally, after all of this time, figured out the perfect way to unlock it. It is to run delay draw at varying points in the game. And it works perfectly. It takes all the things Lausch is best at and throws out the things that he's worst at. Jack Lausch is great at faking like he's going to pass and then taking off. He is a good soldier and a great student. He does what he's supposed to do. So he sells it really well, and then he takes off. And one thing we didn't have for a big part of the middle of this season is Josh Thompson's awesome at running this play from the right guard spot. He just is. You can see it on film. It takes so many things he's great at. He's awesome at the timing of it. He knows how to sell it, and he knows how to get upfield and get into the linebacker at the exact right moment. It's one of those things where it's like, we all know what it looks like to watch a play that works. Lord knows we've watched a lot that don't. But you watch this play run a bunch of different times in this game against the best defense, and it's just like, it basically becomes where it's like either they put 6 in the box or they're not stopping it. And it's crazy to watch. But on the 92-yard drive, we run it twice to monster effect. And the first time we run it, Ohio State really couldn't have. They bring 5 and they spy Lausch. And it doesn't matter. The play just works. And the announcers know it from the second. He hikes the ball, they snap, they go, oh, he's going to run. And he takes off, and you're all like, yes, he is. And it's not just how effective it was. The second time we ran it was the touchdown drive. We talked so much about this last week, and this whole, like, all the turns and twists and turns and everything that's gone wrong with this offense and everything, and everything that Lujan's used to, etc. Zach Lujan's whole passing playbook is based on you having to adjust to an effective run game. That's what he knows. And the second Ohio State had to compensate for this play, he went into his bag. And the 92-yard touchdown drive, I think it's the last play of the first quarter, Lausch runs that QB draw for 9 yards, and then it switches to the second quarter. And at that moment, we're scoring a touchdown on that drive, and it's just a matter of time against the number 1 defense in the country. We're like 60 yards away from the end zone at that point, and we're going to score a drive. We're going to score a touchdown. It's inevitable. The reason I know it's inevitable is we should have scored a touchdown 2 friggin' times on that drive before we actually scored a touchdown. The first, Lujan calls a sick bomb to Henning because he knows Ohio State's overcompensating and Lausch just overthrows him. And then we run that C.J. Johnson reverse pass, which was wide open to Lausch. And if they hadn't have batted it down, he scores a touchdown on that play. It's wide open, 40-yard touchdown. And we still score a touchdown on that play. And I know you're all looking at this and you're being like, well, if all this happened, like then why did it all fall apart after that? Well, we can go into that. But the fact of the matter is that we developed a hammer play, a play that it never stopped working in this game. It worked to some degree every single time we ran it. And Ohio State knew that, and they never fixed it. And when you consider that we are about to play 2 teams that are not Ohio State, like, that's a huge deal. So we can go into the rest of the stuff, but just know it's there, it's on tape, and it's a real working thing that we use to effect for the entire first half of this football game.
Well, I think it's important to talk about identity and what you just said a second ago, John, about Lujan's passing playbook and how it relies on this effective running game, and it's taken him, I'm not going to say 10 weeks to figure it out, because I'm not convinced that they've quote-unquote figured it out. They figured something out. If they can repeat it and it works again next week, then I'm going to start to feel pretty darn good. But it is the identity of this offense has been missing all year. Some of that is certainly because they changed quarterbacks after 2 weeks, and Jack had never played before, and that caused a lot of pressure. But like you had the Indiana game and the Maryland game where we're throwing deep. It's pass. You have the the shift to the read option where we couldn't ever get anything going on the ground. It's just been a really weird year that we thought was going to be a rush heavy year to begin with, especially given the talents of our quarterbacks, which is running the ball. And maybe the reality is from when Jack Lausch took over until now, it's taken a couple bye weeks and a couple of installs and a couple of test and learns to get it right. And this becomes a platform you can build from. That's the positive side. Worst case, this just isn't as effective against Michigan, but we still have some other things cooking, i.e. Bryce Kurtz is back. This offense looks totally different when he is playing.
Huge for him to come back, absolutely.
Like, the common theme between Indiana and Maryland games was Bryce Kurtz. He was missing in Iowa and Wisconsin, our two worst performances. So, there are certainly some things to be excited about, and the idea of that offensive identity starting to come together. It is not just about one play; it's about that identity and the confidence and the foundation that allows the team to build from that. How quickly they can build from that and do so competently and consistently and sustainably, we will see. But it's a potential starting point, and it showed up in what we thought was the darkest hour.
Right. I mean, it truly did. You're absolutely right. And that's the thing. I think we all had such low expectations for this game. We talked about that our ceiling was 7 points in this game. But you got to understand, like, it is, I mean, and this is the crazy thing. Like, I did not come out of this game thinking it is so easy for me to tell you we could have scored 20 points in this game instead of 7 points in this game. I figured that we'd pick up 3 field goals and it'd be 6 points and that would be the end of that, and we'd never sniff the end zone. Like, we scored, so first of all, opening drive, all Lausch has to do is fall down on that third down, and Akers comes out and kicks a field goal. That's 3 points. Then we put up a 92-yard drive. Then in the third quarter, we put together this great drive, get down, I think, inside the 20, and then go for it on 4th and 10 instead of kicking a field goal because of the tenure of the game, because of the score deficit.
I mean, but before people like start hammering on that, I you're not beating Ohio State with field goals.
Oh,
like
sure.
You absolutely need to go for that there.
Right. And it's simply to say, it's like the points were there. You know what I mean? And it's like there. And then at the end of the game, we were in the exact same position where we crushed them with delayed draw for a touchdown. It's almost the exact same spot on the field. They are no more equipped to stop it than they are at this point. But by this point, it's 31-7. The game's almost over. And you have to think that Lujan's going like, he's being like, my goal at this point is not to show more tape on this play, because I plan on using this a lot out of a bunch of different looks next week, and it's like we are on to Michigan at this point. So those were all opportunities in this game that were there to be had. And like the yards, like, I mean, multiple people talked about online that Lausch threw. He's the only other quarterback other than Dylan Gabriel to throw for 200 yards in this game. He was good, like Scuzz said. Kurtz being back was a huge deal. But there's this thing, I mean, you might be thinking to it earlier, like, you just said they ran delay draw 5 times in this game. If we only ran it 5 times, because it worked every single time, and you can watch what that does to Ohio State's defense. Because remember, there's the psychological piece of it. Like, he ran 10 times for 44 yards, other than the times that he was sacked in this game. He gets out of the pocket and runs every now and then too. But this does a couple other things. One, you show Jack Lausch how effective he can be running the ball within the context of a game. So, like, he keeps the ball on read option, miracle of miracles, later in the game and gets a nice 6-yard gain because he's feeling it. He's feeling how much it's all working. But you can just see Ohio State. You talk about, like, the Kurtz piece of it and everything. They shift into man, and they start rolling guys up. And I think everyone is aware we're almost certainly we're not beating Ohio State in this game, but there are a handful of plays where the tenor of this game greatly could have changed. Everyone knows about Aiden Hubbard getting, practically the hand length of a hand away from slapping the ball out of Will Howard's hand on that one drive that eventually became a touchdown. But the two back-to-back plays, and this is, before we get to that though, you see the degree to which Ohio State is shifting up, rolling guys up. And again, Lujan wants that. He has speed. He has A.J. Henning able to go over the top. If you're giving him single coverage, he's got Bryce Kurtz able to do the exact same thing. And it was there. You saw it. Again, I mentioned a couple plays on the 92-yard drive. But the drive after that, it's 7-7. And again, we've looked at the film a bunch. But you have those two plays. You have the play. So we come right out, right? It's 7-7. We just had this amazing drive. I think we throw an incomplete pass on first down, but Lausch runs for 6 yards. He keeps it on a read option, so now it's 3rd and 4. And at this point, Ohio State is really going, what the hell are we going to do to stop this play? He's getting the ball upfield. He's running. They're cooking us right now. What's the problem? Lujan dials up the exact perfect play. He's got man. He brings Henning in motion. It's unclear exactly when every defender realizes that that the snap has been muffed. And we were Sam, we were talking about it earlier. It's hard to see from the one safety. It's kind of hard to see. He never takes any steps back. I think it's Caleb Downs. So he never takes a deep drop. So I think he's shallow middle of the field, and he's maybe looking at Gordon. But there is definitely a mix-up in man responsibilities between the corner who comes in motion with Henning and the linebacker. And between Henning and C.J. Johnson, they just blow this assignment. And Henning is just deep, uncovered. And if that ball gets snapped, you're, at least at that point of the game, maybe looking at a totally different game. But again, these are the problems that we've had. The thing with Ohio State, though, is you make a couple mistakes, you give them the ball at their 2-yard line. We have a single 3 and out. After that, they score again. It's the end of the half. Then they get the ball back to start the half. Then they score again. It's 28-7 by the time we touch the ball, in the second half. And that's Ohio State being Ohio State. They're just awesome on offense. But
their offense is insane. Even the first drive, right? They ended up punting in large part because they pulled a trick play that we snuffed out and stopped, right? We sacked Ibuka for a loss on first down of the last phase of that
and
drive.
That's after they almost caught a touchdown, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then force a punt, and I and this is not a shot at our defense. I honestly believe they could have scored every drive thereafter had they wanted to, and they're that good. They're that good.
And also the tenor of the game too, right? Once it goes from 7-7 and you think you're great to you feel like the roof just caved in and now it's 28-7. That has a way of putting a game to bed.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, I think we were reasonable in holding them down for a period of time, and they get loose on you, right? Like Jeremiah Smith has that insane 70-yard touchdown or 70-yard catch.
And some of those catches weren't even getting loose. Josh Fussel's got great coverage, and Howard just fits it in, and their receivers are insane. They're making these incredible catches. Coverage was cannot knock the coverage a lot of the time, but they were there.
But I think when I sit back, John, and listen to what you're saying, I don't want people to be like, oh, of course John thinks I can just win, if everything goes right. Yeah.
No, but 100% agree.
We talked about this beforehand. The way you beat Ohio State is throw deep. It's the way Oregon did it. You're going to see when teams match up with them in the playoff or the Big Ten championship. It's why Penn State didn't have a prayer, because they can't do that. It's why Michigan is not going to have. Michigan is going to get annihilated by Ohio State because they cannot throw deep. They do not have the receivers nor the quarterback to do it. And unless you can do that, you don't have a prayer against this team. And we were not going to win this game, but a situation where we convert that opening drive, we happen to force them to punt, we get the 92-yard touchdown, we don't give up, an awful turnover. We get a deep throw to Henning. Maybe we're up 17-7. Maybe we're putting a little bit of pressure on them. And again, they're probably going to ultimately win the day. That's like, it's a 4-quarter game. Talent wins out over the course of a game. Depth, all those things really, really, really matter in college football. But you can see the game plan, and it was smart and it was effective, and it had an identity that Northwestern can build on. And that's what we're hopeful for.
Exactly. And I think to your point, both of your points relative to Ohio State's offense, and you just sit back and you're like, I mean, right, they're just really friggin' good at the end of the day. Defense, the exact same thing. And that's another kind of, I don't know if you call it a silver lining, but relative to our offensive performance in this game. I mean, Lujan, Sam said it right off the top. This is Lujan's best game. And I know you see 7 points. He was in his bag in this game. A couple awesome plays. And in addition to everything that we already talked about, there were 2 plays because you kind of have this thing we talked about. It went from, you may be thinking, you're being like, well, you're kind of yada-yadaing how it went from 7-7 to 28-7. I'll walk you right through it. Like, it was 7-7. Then we had those 2 bad snaps in a row. They get the ball at the 2. They go up, it's 14-7. So then we get the ball out. We go 3 and out on the next possession. But Lujan calls an awesome play on 3rd and 3 on that drive. And Caleb Downs, who did this twice in this game, just sniffs it out by being awesome. We talked about this last week with Ohio State. This is why they're the number 1 friggin' defense in the nation. They're so well coached. Both of these particular plays involve Marshall Lang. But on this one, again, Lujan knows that he's got an advantage based on how successful the delay draw is, and he knows Ohio State's compensating for it, and he starts finding ways to release guys deep, and he does it in a bunch of creative ways, and a couple of them work, and we just don't cash it in. But this one doesn't, because Downs reads Lang. It's just Lang fakes block and then releases it. It looks really good, and you look at it and you're like, damn, Downs, how did you read this? But he does, because he's a really good football player. But then that's our 3rd and out. That turns a 3rd and 3 into a punt. And then they score, and then we get the ball back. There's 40 seconds left. So halftime, then they get the ball back again, and they score. And we get the ball back, and it's 28-7. And then, in the face of all of this, with the air having totally gone out of the balloon, we still put together like a 58-yard drive. And that drive kind of comes to a halt when Lujan calls another awesome. It is that play where Downs comes downfield and lights Lang up. But if you watch that play, you're like, how the hell did you see this? He's like, he should be helping out on the fly route over the top. You look at it and you're like, how can you let that guy go? You're theoretically letting a deep ball go, and it's because his instincts. I don't know how he saw it, but he saw it, and it's a play that looks really good right until Downs comes downfield, and it's like, they're just awesome. So and then, that basically led to that drive short-circuiting and us not kicking the field goal for, again, as Sam said, good reasons, but we didn't convert a 4th and 10, and that's it. They get a field goal, and now it's 31-7. That's the final score of the game. So, yeah. But again, yeah.
I feel like we should shift gears to look forward, but like one last little thing, John, you mentioned 250 yards on offense doesn't sound great, but Penn State had 270 against this team. Nebraska had 273. Iowa had 225.
Right.
We're in pretty good company in the way we performed against this juggernaut. So,
yeah. And again, it's like, I guess the thing as we spin it forward, right, the thing that I will say is, you can look in the film and you're like, Lujan called an awesome game. We have a working hammer play that, like Scuzz said, it either gets solved by teams going forward or it doesn't, but Ohio State never solved it in this game. It's just that this game was effectively over barely into the 3rd quarter of this game, and everyone on the field knew it, and that affected everything that came after. And there is some alternate history where this goes down a different way. But it's like, we have a real working thing. It's a real working, easy-to-run fundamental play that when we're not running it, Michigan's going to be waiting for us to run it. And that's a really big thing. And then the question is, can we, for 1 week, not be the team that finds a way to shoot ourselves in the foot? There's a real working system here, a real thing that is the basis for a real working offensive performance to complement the great effort that our defense is going to give us next week. Can we, for 1 week, not find a way to take that away from ourselves? Can we just play clean football? That's going to be the goal.
And you know, as we do look ahead to this upcoming weekend against Michigan, you know, this is a Michigan team whose offense is every bit as, like, statistically, what, 129th to our 130th?
5.7 yard. They're 5.7 yards a game better than we are. Good for 129th in the nation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad offense, and they cannot throw the ball whatsoever. They can run the ball. I mean, let's call a spade. They can run the ball. Mullings and Edwards are an incredible 1-2 punch, and like they will show that often. But you know, this is not the same Michigan team that won the national championship last year. Like, it's just not.
It's not even in the same
No.
stratosphere. Yeah.
So I mean, here's the kicker. Like their defense is every bit as talented as Ohio State's. Yeah, statistically, they don't look as good because they don't have the other side of the ball.
This is true.
Beating the
You're
crap
right.
out of teams.
You're right.
So,
they get a
but
truck backed over them every week. You're right.
their defensive line is exceptional. What they did against Indiana 2 weeks ago was to basically say, Indiana, we are coming after you. We're coming after you with 4, maybe 5 guys, but our defensive tackles and our defensive ends are going to make Curtis Rourke uncomfortable, and we're going to put you on your back foot. And they did it, and they're the very first team in this college football season to do that to Indiana. They presented, that defense presents a challenge for Northwestern. And then on the other side of the ball, Ohio State ran very effectively on Northwestern. They averaged over 5 yards per carry. They got 173 yards total. Now, granted, that is because they also have arguably the best wide receiver core in college football and a quarterback with exceptional accuracy. That opens up space for the running game. Michigan does not have those things, but they still have a strong running game. So Northwestern must play exceptional run defense, exceptional tackling in this game against Michigan to even have a chance. And then on the other side of the ball, like, Michigan's going to watch all that tape from Ohio State. They're going to have that draw play identified, and it's going to be up to our offense to not screw up, to not shoot themselves in the foot, and to execute effectively. And we'll see if the scheme bears out and allows us to get a couple scores up on Michigan, and then hopefully continue to hold their paltry offense in check. There's a path here. It still feels like an extremely uphill battle to me, given the location of the game and some of the talent differential. But that's your path for a win against this Michigan team. It's not crazy.
Yeah. I think the other negative, and I guess you kind of mentioned it, Michigan's coming off their best game of the season. Their game against Indiana is their best.
I was about to say their bye week.
No, yeah, not their
you're
bye
right.
week. Yeah.
You're right. It was their best. It was their best game of the season defensively.
I mean, you can look at games early on in the season like USC and be like, yeah, but now we know USC's not good. So it's like that game was a lot of smoke and mirrors. We know Indiana's awesome. Indiana has, we know, one of the greatest offenses in the country, and it's comparing apples to oranges. Everything they do is different from what we do. Like, Rourke's not running. They run RPO, and they hit you, hammer you on the ground. They run RPO. They look to, their receivers. We know everything. They're awesome at it. Michigan did a great job.
Their traditional running game is like a Michigan's defense. It's a great matchup for them.
Right. And that's the thing.
Our running game not as great. And you can see what Oregon did with Dylan Gabriel. You can see what Minnesota did. Like, there's some options here.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like, what we're going to do is totally different. And again, were we to have done what we just did against Ohio State with this delayed draw, if it was any other defense, I'd be like, well, yeah, but now we have to do it against Michigan. But it was Ohio State's defense. And I can't stress enough, it's not like Ohio State wasn't trying different stuff out there to deal with this play. Knowles moved guys all over. They tried 6 in the box. They tried 5 in the box. They tried 6 on the line. he was trying stuff with the best defense in football, and they never got it quite figured out. And like Scott said, that doesn't mean Michigan won't figure it out. And yeah, Michigan's also a really good defensive football team. But Michigan's coming in being like, shoot, we have to figure this out. What's this? They do this weird thing now where they clearly seem to have just discovered this delayed draw based offense, and they're going to try to hit us with that when we're not expecting it. And then when we start compensating, they're going to try to go over the top with all their speed. And I'm like, yeah, sweet. It sucks that it took us 10 games to figure this out. But yeah, that's right. That's what we're going to try to do. And you're going to have to deal with it.
I got a stat line for you. So, John, you posted this after the Ohio State game that when you remove sack yardage, Jack Lausch, 10 rushes for 44 yards. In the Illinois-Michigan game earlier this year, which Illinois won 21-7, against arguably Michigan's most effective quarterback this year in Jack Tuttle, who is no longer playing, Luke Altmaier, 10 carries for 48 yards and one touchdown. Almost an exact stat line to Lausch against Ohio State. That's the formula. Now, whether or not we can do it, whether or not we can execute, whether or not Michigan is able to adapt and adjust and shut it down, whether or not we're able to keep them honest with the deep passes, all that other sort of stuff, right? This is what it comes down to. Execution. It's been a bugaboo all season. If they can do it, we can win this game.
Right. And that's the thing. And it's like, our defense is going to keep us in this one. I mean, like, Ohio State, you just have to, again, quote Pedro Martinez, tip your hat and call him daddy. I mean, like, their offense is awesome. And again, we don't dwell on it too much because we don't know exactly why he wasn't playing, but we didn't have Thayer Johnson for this game, who, by a lot of statistical measures, has an argument for Big Ten's best cornerback right now. He is first in the conference in passes defensed, and as we put up, if you look at that stat, Thayer Johnson versus every other top guy in the country in the conference in passes defensed, he has more tackles than the next 10 guys on that list. And most of those guys, he has way more tackles than, like twice as many tackles as. He's having an unbelievable season. We know about some of those other things. But I think we're going to have him next week, and we're also going to have Josh Fussell, a guy coming off, again, a really good game where he got beat a couple times because they're playing an NFL receiver core out there, and he's a freshman. He also made a bunch of really good plays in the run and pass game. So you're figuring this defense, our defense is going to bring it. And maybe we get Xander back for this game. If not, Grayson Metz has done a great job. He's going to continue to do a great job. And those guys are going to keep us in this game regardless. And it's like our offense is going to get help. And it feels like maybe, just maybe, our offense is prepared to give our defense some help here. And again, like, this could go multiple ways, but I'm feeling really good about this game. Like, the tape is the tape. And what is there against Ohio State, against this unbelievable defense, it's real. And if we just can get out of our own way and just not commit penalties and no snap issues, no head-scratching calls, time management, all the things that various different times something has come up and bit us. If we just play clean football and let the potential of this offense work just well enough, I think we can get it. And again, like, there's so much there.
Do you guys think we get Xander back this week?
I don't.
I don't want to speculate. I think
we got nothing to really go on. I mean, Braun said the same thing. He's like, we hope he'll be back, but my gut says no.
We're all of the same opinion, though, that unless he was absolutely raring to go, he wasn't going to play in the Ohio State game.
100%.
So there's no doubt that they're trying to rest him up. I hope we get him for both. And again, if he's ready to play, you've got the benefit of the fact that Grayson Metz has done an awesome job. So it's not like you have to throw him out there. It's not like you have to throw Xander out there and give him a full shift. You can see exactly what he's got. You can give him the maximum amount of help. And, of course, he's going to give you worlds, So I certainly wouldn't count it out. I would love to see it. And if not that, then for the Illinois game. But regardless, I think all of us flush whatever it is that you think you saw from Ohio State. Their offense is incredible. They're absolutely stacked. And yeah, their running game is really good. But like Scott said, that's partly because of their unbelievable balance and partly just because they're awesome. But if we can just step up against that run game and make it and shut it down or at least contain it and make it a thing, again, their passing game's horrible. That's why they're the 129th offense in the country. And it's like, if we've got our piece to be just better enough. And the other hilarious piece is that were we to pull that off, it probably knocks Michigan out of a bowl game, which would be a pretty awesome feather to put in the cap of this star-crossed season. So, let's see it.
This is where the recent history against Michigan has not been very favorable.
No, it hasn't.
Unfortunately. And it's where I hate to say it, but I have to remind us all that Northwestern went 0-3 during the Brady Hoke era against Michigan.
Is Moon within that era? It is, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah. I believe so. So, yeah, Michigan is currently on a 7-game win streak. Moon, yeah, I think the Hoke era, so 13, 14, 15, right?
That sounds right.
So, last time we beat them was 2008. That was Rich Rod. And it was year one of Rich Rod. Rich Rod was the last time we beat them. Actually, it might have been 0-4 during the Hoke era. Was he there for 4 years? I can't exactly remember, but it hasn't been great, Bob.
Neither can Michigan fans.
It hasn't been great. We have not played them since 2021.
It has been a minute, right?
It's been a couple years. Yep. This is the worst quarterback they've had since those awful Rich Rod teams.
It's Warren, right? Orgy is not starting.
Yeah,
right?
Davis Warren. Yeah, so Orgy has been basically demoted to he just comes in to run in tush push situations and like 3rd and 4s, those sorts of things. Tuttle has retired from football, and so it's Davis Warren, and he's a guy that struggled with a ton of turnovers at the beginning of the year. He's a guy that doesn't have a big arm, etc. So, and they don't have a huge, imposing, dynamic wide receiver core either. I mean, this is very much Mullings and Edwards, the O-line, etc. And if you can hold them in check on 1st and 2nd down, you got a great shot on 3rd down.
Well, that's going to be the big if. 12.5-point spread. What do you?
That's
I saw that.
I mean, this offense has. I mean, when was the last time we scored more than other than Purdue? Have we scored more than 7 points? And
yeah,
I don't. I mean, again, there have been no shortage of spreads where I'm like, this feels about right, or this not looking good for us, etc. I'm like, this one, I don't see it. I don't get where. I mean, I think maybe a lot of the history Scuzz is talking about, and the fact that it's in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor ain't exactly been a fortress for them, though. So, again, this is a team that if we beat them, they probably don't bowl. This is not a good Michigan team, and as Scuzz says, we've lost to a lot of bad Michigan teams, but how about this is the one that switches it over? Again, I feel really good about this. If we just can play clean football, I think all the pieces are in place for us to win this game.
I mean, we lost to Wisconsin by 20, Iowa by 24, and Ohio State by 24. 12 and a half against Michigan on the road. I mean,
yeah, I guess.
I just think of the tenor of the Wisconsin game and the Iowa game, though, where it's a mix of us. A mix of us pulling our hair out to be like, why the heck aren't we running the ball more and more effectively, right? And then a bunch of really head-scratching coaching decisions. And against Ohio State, we didn't have those things. We had other problems, but we didn't have those things.
I will say, I guarantee that the bookmakers in Vegas did not dissect the tape to the level that you did, John, to understand.
Hey,
if you're feeling good about this game, folks, You got
We'd
that
be-
going for you.
Well,
We
we'd be-
definitely scrutinized this tape from last week a lot more than anybody in Vegas did. So you got that going for you if you're feeling confident.
We'd be remiss as Northwestern fans if we did not point out that there is no team that Vegas gets more wrong and more consistently wrong than the Northwestern Wildcats on a historical basis.
Not this
No,
year.
no, that's true.
Not this year, but
Hear you.
may it happen this week though. We should mention too. So we are Beer Miscuous back up and running. We're going to be at Beer Miscuous this week. So if you're in the city downtown, come and join us. We're going to be. I think we're expecting a good crowd there. I'm sure we're going to have some good food, good stuff going on. Obviously, there's good beer. So if you're looking for a place to watch the game, we're going to be at Beer Miscuous.
If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. Let's take a look around the rest of the conference from last week. Some real interesting games. Washington beats UCLA on Friday night. Cool. Great. But Oregon struggling on the road in Madison. Ekes out a 16-13 win, scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter.
It's such a weird. If you look at the stats, you'll be like, "How in God's name was Wisconsin ever in this game?" but they were. There, I think they didn't throw for. I mean, this is. I'll clear out the paint for this in a second, but this is a team that literally fired their offensive coordinator after this game, and Oregon. You watch Gabriel. He played so well. He threw a really bad red zone interception. And I think Wisconsin did a good job of slowing it down. But really, Oregon was taking control from the end of the third quarter onward. And, it felt like they had seized momentum and had it in hand. But it's crazy that it was this close at all.
Win your clunkers.
Win your clunkers. The first half, Wisconsin goes punt, 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 field goal, punt. They get a touchdown at the very end of the half to go up 10-6 because Oregon goes field goal, interception, field goal, and then punt, punt. And they just kind of couldn't put it together. They'd get a series, and then Wisconsin would hold them on first down. They'd have an incomplete pass, and then it was just rough sledding. Wisconsin's defense. I'll give credit where credit's due. Wisconsin's defense has gotten much better through the course of this year. And in the second half, they lost. What's the dude's name? They lost their best player to injury. Hunter Wohler, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, during this game, yeah. They lost Wohler. Yeah.
So they lost Wohler in the second half, but Oregon was already kind of pressing and had already kind of gotten the game even, and I think he even got their field goal. Maybe it was on that field goal drive that he went down with injury. But Luke Fickell and this defense didn't look great at the beginning of the season, and they've pulled things together. But the Wisconsin offense, and I have to say, I feel pretty damn vindicated because I've been talking about this for 2 years.
You should.
This is very different from the Northwestern situation because when Luke Fickell was hired, he brought Phil Lungo to Wisconsin as the OC. He was inheriting a team that had been exceptionally good at offense for years, just in a very specific way. And I think correctly assessed that to make Wisconsin better than they are, to elevate them from a excellent Big Ten team to be an excellent national team with national title aspirations, national impact aspirations, you needed to elevate the quarterback and the wide receiver positions at the school. You're not going to do that when you're running the ball 50 times a game. You've got to change the offense. The mistake they made was deciding to do it immediately, just yanking off the Band-Aid. All last year, it was this struggle of running everything through the quarterback, everything through I want to say Tanner McAvoy, which is not the right name, Tanner Mordecai. Running everything through, that's too many bad historical Wisconsin quarterbacks named Tanner. But running everything through Tanner Mordecai, too much, and then realizing and turning it over to Braylon Allen in the really good running game. I mean, you had a team tailor-made to pound the ball down other teams' throats, and they just decided to go away from it. Nobody made them do it. Nobody pushed them to do it. Nobody forced. That is a choice that they made. And then this year, they bring in the transfer QB, Tyler Van Dyke. They start doing the exact same thing. He gets injured in week 3 against Alabama, so yes, it puts him on the back foot. But they never, ever figured out how to. They had some of the best offensive line talent in the whole Big Ten, and they've squandered it for 2 years. And I feel so vindicated that they've just really struggled to bring this all together and put anything. And you know, maybe this sounds rich, given that we went 1-1 against this team. I'll remind you, we won last year. For anyone who's gonna chest thump about the Wisconsin result 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I just, it'll be very interesting to see where they go from here, and if they continue to try to go air raid as much as they've been trying to air raid, or if they shift gears back to more of the traditional running game. What's ironic about this season is that Ches Malusi got knocked out with injury early in the year, and they've landed on Tyree Walker, this freshman running back, as their primary threat right now. So if that's where they decide to double down and kind of go back to the Wisconsin offense of old, it'll be pretty interesting. Well, we will see. We will see. But what a journey this last year and 3 quarters has been for the Wisconsin Badger offense.
Seriously. Penn State 49, Purdue 10. Don't really have anything to say about that one.
The only thing I'll say about this one is I think it's pretty clear Purdue's waiting till the end of the season to fire Ryan Walters.
Yeah.
They would have. Otherwise they would have done it. The fans are chanting for it every game. They have pretty much insurrection in the stands going right now. They're just going to let this one play out, and then they're going to do it.
Illinois beats Michigan State 38-16.
I quipped that this was the Big Ten West game of the week, and for a lot of the game, for a lot of the game it was, and then in the fourth quarter, Illinois just, I think they just basically ran roughshod over Michigan State, and really took it to them. So kudos to the Illini for getting this done in the end. Michigan State had two. They had a 3-and-out. Illinois scored a touchdown to go up by 2 scores. Then they turned it over on downs. Illinois scored another touchdown, and then Michigan State again turned it over on downs. So their offense just really fell apart, and Illinois was able to run the ball pretty effectively thereafter. So this Illini team, we play them in 2 weeks. They've been a little trick or treat this year, but I guess I got to give them credit for not living up to the Big Ten West billing that we were trumpeting about last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, right. You want to give Illinois their due and being like, look, we're playing a team that's capable of playing really good football. If you look at Michigan State's schedule, the one obvious outlier is their win over Iowa, who are, of course, a trick-or-treat team in their own right. Aside from that, though, they have a 3-point win over Maryland, which is about exactly what you'd expect between those two teams at this point. And aside from that, and a win over Prairie View, Michigan State's lost every game since that point. They've lost 6 of their last 7, with the Iowa being the one outlier. So Michigan State is not a good football team, but yeah, I mean, credit where credit is due. Illinois played good football, and I'm sure they're going to play good football against us.
Nebraska continues to be allergic to 6 wins.
It is amazing. They're really going to take a shot at it. They are really going to try to make this happen.
Losing on the road at USC 28-20. Jaden Maivia.
Is this the Big Ten West football game of the week?
It was in the West.
No, not really. Yeah, if it was 21-20, it would have been. Yeah. But my God, what a result!
And then Rutgers. 31-17 over Maryland.
Well, hold on. hold on, it's not just Nebraska allergic to the postseason. Because, like, yes, USC won this game, but now USC has to play UCLA and then Notre Dame, and they got to win one of those games to get bowl eligible.
Oh, yeah.
Both these teams might find themselves on the outside looking in by the end of the season.
I mean, UCLA, I mean, that'll be an interesting one. I mean, both teams are struggling, but yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch. And yeah, Rutgers beats Maryland 31-17. Rutgers gets their 6th win. They're going bowling, but I think we were all puzzled about this line going into this game.
It is unbelievable that Rutgers, like, they could not, like, this is a team we were high on at the beginning of the season. The wheels couldn't have fallen off more. They couldn't have gone more out into the wilderness than they did. And now they've got 2 wins in a row, and they still have Michigan State to end the season. Like, Rutgers could still finish with a winning record this season after all of this.
Looking nationally, anything jumping out at you? BYU loses to Kansas. Like, what is this Kansas team?
Yeah.
I do not understand this Kansas team.
Well, the Kansas team is ridiculous. They're a stone's throw. They're a handful of points from being 9-1, and they're what 4-6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big thing about that game was, I think BYU losing threw a ton of things into flux, because now, as things currently stand, Boise is the 4th highest rated presumed conference champion, and those 4 teams all get byes. So Boise wouldn't just get in, they'd get a bye as things currently stand, which would be incredible, but there's still like a lot of football before that point.
Mike Bajakian's offense,
they came alive late. I was watching that for a long time because they were sitting on 6 points for a while, and then they picked up a couple more late, but that game was never close. Colorado really dusted them. I don't think Utah's not a good team right now, but Colorado is getting it done. They've come back around.
Travis Hunter, man, holy crap!
He's going to the Heisman ceremony. I don't know who's going to win, but he'll be one of the 3 invitees for sure. The hype alone.
I was pretty dismissive. I was dismissive of his chances of winning last week. I 100% agree that he's going. I'm still not buying the. I think Nicole Auerbach over the weekend was like, well, Travis Hunter just like locked up the Heisman. I'm not convinced, because you know what happens. If Alabama steamrolls Auburn during rivalry week, people are going to lose their minds and be so excited and forget the fact that Auburn sucks at football. And there's like 17 other examples of that. They're going to happen across the sport.
The Dylan Gabriel.
During the broadcast of our game, the announcers talked about how there's a growing campaign for Will Howard to win the Heisman Trophy.
Are you kidding me?
I know. Like, this is this is the thing. It happens every year, and it's always a quarterback, with like 2 exceptions in the lwe already had that debate last week. Point being, the one thing that got called out for Hunter that I think does really stand out is I think he's had a touchdown and a pick in 3 different games this year, and that's something that I don't know that anyone has ever done. More than once, maybe, but so he's certainly going to New York, and then like the rest of it, like, who knows? But there's so much football left to play that I think it would be foolish to try to prognosticate that at this stage.
Yeah, there's not too much else that I saw of import this week, but as long as we're talking Heisman candidates, I mean, Boise 142-21, Ginty had 159. He's going too. And I think we're all betting right now it would be those 2, and Milroe would probably be the 3 that are going as things
Gabriel?
currently stand.
I mean,
Gabriel for sure.
Gabriel maybe. As Scuzz said, this is when all the important stuff happens. So it's all going to shift a ton in the next week or 2.
Yeah. Will Howard's stats are bananas, and if they knock off Oregon in championship week, like, you just never know. I got to call out the ACC. The Big Ten was drunk a few weeks ago. The ACC has been drunk for weeks now.
Yeah, that's true.
Stanford beats Louisville on a 57-yard field goal, 51-yard field goal.
Louisville.
I want to pull it up to get it actually.
Louisville effectively gave Stanford the win.
Yeah, it's a 52-yard field goal. Yeah. So Louisville commits an absurd penalty after the whistle out of bounds, grabs the receiver's leg, pulls him down. 15-yard penalty for a 57-yard field goal try that then they are offsides on, and then Stanford gets another shot from 52 and they hit it. And then Pitt has Clemson beat and gives up a 50-yard quarterback run inexplicably, having played exceptional defense all day, barely allowing Clemson to run the ball. Cade Klubnik, like, sure, he's athletic, but not the guy that you typically hear about, like going on 50-yard romps.
Well, and also that game, to your point about that entire game was drunk. Pitt was juggling offensive linemen. It went super long. It was a generally gross football game that Pitt was somehow going to pull out, and then Pitt gave it away.
And when Pitt didn't even have their starting QB.
Right.
They were playing the backup because Eli Holstein was injured. So, they're playing Nate Yarnell. What a. Yeah. I mean, I guess this is what happens when you create a coast-to-coast conference. Oh, wait.
All right. So looking ahead to this week in the Big Ten, you got, I'm sure Fox is just loving this one. You know, watching them try to promote Friday night, Purdue at Michigan State. Michigan State is a 13.5 point favorite here.
It's truly.
Is
Michigan
there a trophy
State,
for this game?
I don't think so. Is there?
Michigan State, a bad football team who has lost 6 of their last 7 games, is a 13.5 point favorite in this game. Purdue is just, it's a ghost ship. They're barely even functioning.
We talked about the Northwestern Michigan game. That's at 2:30 on FS1. So, commercial. I mean, FS1 loves their commercials, so that game's going to probably go like 4.5 hours. Hour and a half being commercials. But the big one, big noon, Indiana, Ohio State. In the shoe.
What a game.
Ohio State, a 13.5 point home favorite. This is going to be incredible.
I mean, that spread seems about right. Indiana
is
just, they have to climb the mountain here. It's rough. I mean, it stinks that it's this hard for them after everything that they've done to get into this championship game. But, I mean, they could play a really good game and still lose by 13.5 points. I hope that they play closer, and I hope they give the Buckeyes absolutely everything in this one. But, yeah, it's a tall order.
Well, and they had a bye week. I mean, they're going to come in with – I mean, you got to think that, like, Cignetti spent, a couple hours of the last 2 weeks signing a new contract, but beyond that has spent every waking minute thinking about this Ohio State game and how to beat the Buckeyes. So this is going to be a fascinating
game.
Yeah,
I mean, and shouts to Cignetti. I mean, contract extension not even through his first year. I mean, he's just done incredible work there, and it's going to be I can't wait to watch this game. It's going to be so much fun.
And I think, again, the expectation is Indiana loses a hard-fought game here. You have a hide your kids game against Purdue the week after, and then Indiana goes to the playoff. That's the way that it should go down, but it would be so awesome if Indiana could pull this off.
You got Illinois at Rutgers, 11 a.m. on Peacock. Rutgers, a 1.5 point home favorite.
I was going to say, after being 5-point dogs on the road to Maryland, Rutgers now hosts a much better Illinois team and is favored.
What a weird line. I know. My instinct is that, like, I would take Illinois there, but who knows? I don't know what you're getting from Rutgers now, or frankly, Illinois. I guess we'll see.
You've got Iowa at Maryland. Iowa 6.5, only a 6.5 point favorite on the road. That's 11 a.m. on Big Ten Network. Sullivan's out for the year. He's done. Yeah.
Yeah. They're literally down to their 4th-string QB, unless McNamara makes his comeback. But I don't think he was even on the depth chart anymore.
Maryland is a team that at the end of the day we absolutely pegged, but for this bizarre USC game, they effectively beat Villanova and then went out into the wilderness. And we basically predicted that you could see that Mike Locksley was probably going to get fired and that the way the season would play out is going to have a lot to do with that. Well, I figure on them losing at the end of the day, 7 of their last 8 games, and then that probably is going to be it for him.
2:30 on CBS, Penn State at Minnesota. Penn State, a 12.5 point road favorite.
Oh, hold on. Go back. McNamara is going to start again against Maryland.
Is he? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just digging that up. So, wow, man.
Wow.
What a ride! What a ride it's been. But they should be able to run all over Maryland. Sorry, carry on, Sam, with your Penn State.
Yeah,
Minnesota.
Penn State, Minnesota is Penn State a 12.5-point road favorite on CBS.
This would be a classic game for good Minnesota to show back up and give Penn State a game. It is at home. I do expect Penn State to win this game, but I would
Big
not
Ten West game of the week.
Maybe?
I was going to say I would not be surprised
the
if
next
Penn State gets
the next one's
dragged
Big
into
Ten game
mud
of the
pit.
week.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's true.
Wisconsin, Nebraska. It's at Nebraska. Nebraska's a 2.5-point home favorite, but man,
Nebraska at home against a team that just fired its offensive coordinator, and they're 2.5-point favorites. Like, it really is. They have that Nebraska stink all over them right now. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean they've got Wisconsin and then Iowa next week to try to get one win to break their bowlless streak. But come on.
I mean, I would have them
Wisconsin.
winning
Let's
this
go.
game.
Come on, Wisconsin.
I think they're going to pull it out. But yeah, go ahead, Wisconsin. Go get them.
Let's do it.
They have not announced a new offensive coordinator yet.
Oh, I think I saw that it's going to be like a joint. Like they said, there was going to be like this joint thing play calling. I don't know if that was real or just something made up online. But yeah, it's just.
I heard Jim Leonard's coming back to call the. That's what they're going to do.
Let's
no,
see.
My Broncos need Jim Leonard. That defense is playing out of their mind.
Wait, what? Oh my God!
Are you seeing what I saw?
I'm sorry. This is too funny. So, this article doesn't say anything about who is going to actually be the OC on Saturday, but this article is highlighting who might replace Phil Longo at Wisconsin.
Oh.
And the first candidate, Mike Denbrock, Notre Dame offensive coordinator. What?
Shoot your shot,
What?
I guess.
Like, what offensive coordinator in the right mind is going to leave Notre Dame to go to Wisconsin? I just don't. Unless he went to, I guess he has a relationship with Fickle or something from back in the. But I just come on, people, it's preposterous. This is clickbait journalism.
Yeah, seriously. Finally, you've got 9:30 Central on NBC. So much for Saturday Night Live, I guess. USC at UCLA. It's at the Rose Bowl. It's gonna. I mean.
It says a lot that the USC is only 4.5-point favorite in this game. That says a lot about both of these teams because I would never have guessed it to be this close. I still think USC is going to win.
Jaden Mava had some massive luck in his first game in that Nebraska game. Like some things like near misses on interceptions, couple of lucky calls, potentially lucky breaks, etc. And yes, UCLA lost at Washington, but we all thought that was going to be a pretty tricky spot to play, etc.
By the way,
yes, last week USC won and UCLA lost, but the prior 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it was the opposite. I mean, this is one of those crazy ass rivalry games that often goes not the way you expect it to go.
And in this rivalry game up to this point in the season, statistically, the best quarterback for either of these teams by far is Miller Moss, who will not be playing.
Yep, not going to be playing.
He is in the portal.
Looking at,
I mean, I guess on the upside for UCLA is that they shut down Iowa's running game, and if they can shut down Woody Marks, I don't know, guys. We might this. It's gonna be pretty wild.
For sure, yeah. Looking around the country, nothing. This is like the week before rivalry week, right? So this is the week that the SEC plays Southeast Nowhere State and Our Lady of Perpetual Motion.
If I had to call any game, if I had to call anything, I'd call Kansas over Colorado. That's the one I'm circling. Circle it, underline it, highlight it, put it in pen. Colorado's only a 3-point favorite.
It's not.
I think Kansas.
It's at the Chiefs Stadium. It's at Arrowhead, so they're not playing in Lawrence.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. But I don't know. That to me feels like that's the one. I think Kansas seems to have righted the ship.
Maybe we'll see.
There are a bunch of legit SEC games this weekend.
Okay.
By the way, Ole Miss at Florida.
Florida's not that good.
Kentucky at Texas. I mean, a lot of them are mismatches. Alabama at Oklahoma.
A&M Auburn.
Vanderbilt, LSU, A&M Auburn. Yeah, but they had a couple teams that played. I think Alabama played Mercer last week, and then Georgia plays as UMass this week. So they had a couple of those, but it's not a whole week off.
It's not as bad as it has been in previous years.
I would say the game of the week that people want to deliver the most that is not going to deliver is Notre Dame versus Army. I think Notre Dame is going to absolutely steamroll Army just like they steamrolled Navy. Again, everyone wants that to be a good game, but it's going to be exactly what Navy was. Those are pretty equivalent football teams. Army just hasn't played the schedule that Navy has.
And
I'd love to see it be a good game, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm actually interested in this BYU-Arizona State game. Arizona State.
Oh, hell yeah.
Arizona State controls their own destiny here. They win out. They're playing in the Big 12 championship.
So I saw them in person here in Cincinnati, and Sam Levitt, the QB, was injured. So they were playing their backup, Jeff Sims, who you might remember from last year's disastrous Nebraska campaign. But Cam Scatabo, their running back, whose name is quite Scandinavian, to which my dad, who was at the game with me, was very tickled by this. He kept remarking on Scatabo and how Danish it sounds. But regardless, that Arizona State squad has really figured it out this year. I mean, they were kind of left for dead a couple of years ago after Herm Edwards was let go and went back to the drawing board, etc. And now Kenny Dillingham is their head coach now, and they were picked to finish last in the Big 12, and they, like you said, Sam, control their own destiny.
So, and any last thoughts on football before? Like I say, we still have a lot to talk about here.
I feel really guilty that we're an hour plus into this pod. We're about to go where we are. There's a small fraction of you who are super pissed right now. We see you. I see you.
So the football team is not the only team going to Ann Arbor this weekend.
Hell yeah.
Field hockey makes it to the Final Four again.
For the fourth straight
year. Yeah, they win big their first game against Miami, Ohio, but then taking on a really feisty Virginia team. That game was just really intense. Virginia ties it up. Virginia has a lead going into halftime. Northwestern comes back, scores right off the hop, takes a 2-1 lead. Virginia ties it again. Northwestern has what looks like a go-ahead goal late, but it's overturned due to a unsafe shot or something. I guess. So it went off Sessa's stick instead of the defender's stick. I don't understand all of the field hockey rules as well as I'd like to, but it was still a really long review before they took that goal off the board. Goes to overtime, and there, off a great corner, Lauren Wattis buries it. To get a 3-2 win for the Cats, taking them to the Final Four.
It was so great. And you all know Lauren Wattis, friend of the pod, was on the pod at the beginning of the season. It's so cool. It's just, for it to go down like this, for her to get the game winner, obviously an absolute hero for this team, someone who has stepped up again and again over the course of her Wildcat career. And to do it right then was so huge. And and there was the subtext too of the fact that Virginia had eliminated Michigan in the game right before that, and that we weren't. I think we all kind of figured, that's the one team to beat Northwestern, and we're circling them. We're gonna have to go through them again, and then it didn't happen. But then, you had that tenor of we're down and it's 1-0 and it's 1-0 for a while, and you're like, oh man, is this going like the same way? And then, like Sam said, it didn't. But then, I think for it to go to overtime like that and then end the way like that was spectacular. Also, as long as we're talking about not just this game but the whole weekend, this whole regional that Northwestern hosted. Want to give a shout out to Noah Kaufman, obviously friend of the pod, has been on the pod a couple of times, and Dylan Friedland, who called all 3 of those field hockey games and did an awesome job. And 2 of those they called back-to-back one day. And Friedland, we were talking about this, he's also super involved with the Wild side. He's like one of the #1 fans, particularly for basketball, and has been the whole season. There was an awesome shot of Brooks Barnheiser personally thanking him at the end of last season for everything that he and the Wild side had done. And he pulled full duty this weekend. Basketball, then called 2 field hockey games, then went and did, I think, like photography, like promotional duty for the Wild side at the Wrigley game, and then went back and called Northwestern Virginia the next day. And of course, Noah was doing play-by-play. His call of Lawrence goal is phenomenal. And for us, again, like hearing an awesome call of a player's awesome play in a huge Northwestern moment and knowing all of the parties involved is one of those things that is just a uniquely Northwestern thing. And one of the things we always talk about that makes Northwestern so special. So yeah, it is this magical thing that for football, they will get whatever the indescribable special sauce is of having our field hockey team the same weekend also in Ann Arbor pursuing a national championship. I don't think we've talked about the bracket yet.
Yeah, I was just about to go there. UMass is who we're looking at on Friday afternoon at 2:00. This is a UMass team that we saw at the very beginning of the season. We knocked them off 6-1 on September 1st in the second game of the year at home. But I mean, UMass is playing a bit of a Cinderella run here, making it to the Final Four.
It's all chalk but them. They knocked off, who was it, UConn in the opening round, the 3 seed, and then got by Harvard, and they're in. And that's the thing. It's UNC and St. Joe's on the other side, the 1 and the 4 seed, just as you would expect. But UMass has made it, and obviously for us, it puts us in this weird situation because, as Sam said, it's this team we handled at the beginning of the season. They are not one of the juggernauts, but they're playing really well right now, and we have to give them our very best game while knowing that this collision course we have been on the entire season is a single game away from finally happening. Northwestern and North Carolina have had each other circled the entire year. It's been just fate this entire time. It is fated going into this weekend, and both of these teams, have to take care of business. North Carolina hasn't given up a goal in this tournament so far. I think 2 3-0 wins, including, most recently over their rival, Duke. And it's like we're this close to these two teams dancing again spectacularly on Sunday. So yeah, that's where they're heading. And in the middle of those two titanic games, football is going to play versus the Wolverines.
Men's basketball, we had a couple games this week. A pretty solid win over UIC, 83-74. And then a game against Eastern Illinois. We win 67-58, but that was in overtime.
Yeah, it was. We all were talking about this, and may this be true, furiously knocking wood, but may this be the Chicago State game. Last year, we're all familiar with the Chicago State game, where just on a night that no one was around, the fans weren't there, no one was watching the game, Northwestern laid an egg to a horrible Chicago State team that ran in the face of the whole rest of the season. And Eastern Illinois is sure looking like a team that's going to be pretty bad this year. And yeah, we were up 10 at the half, gave it away, and we're just like a mess. And really, were it not for an absolutely elite performance by Jalen Leach, particularly at the line where he hit 15 free throws, we were
15 of 16.
Yeah, 15 of 16, just absolutely elite. We would have been in trouble. But yeah, I mean, again, there's nothing much you can say other than that, like, you're going to have ugly games. This was a really ugly game, and we didn't take the loss that we took against Chicago State, and hopefully that's the lesson here.
Well, big kudos to the student section that a lot of folks have called out that, the students continue to be out in force for this team. We talked about it from the jump of the very first home opener. And I mean, that's a pretty marked difference from Chicago State last year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Jalen Leach, 27 points. Nick Martinelli was 16. That's kind of an off night for him. He's been...
I was gonna say, can you imagine that going back and being like 4 games into this season, we're gonna be like, Nick Martinelli had 16 points, and everyone's gonna go, oh. It's like, yeah, that's because he's been incandescent.
He's been insane.
Up until this point.
We had maybe heard that Brooks Barnheiser might have been back against Eastern Illinois. He did not play against the Panthers. So we'll have to wait and see kind of what when he might make his debut this year. We've got a couple games coming up. Montana State is who we're looking at next. They're on Tuesday night. That's an 8:00 tip on Big Ten Network. We got Pepperdine coming up later in the week as well. So we'll see if Barnheiser suits up for either of those 2 games. Obviously hoping to keep the momentum going and get everyone right, get everyone rocking and rolling. Got a game against Butler coming up, and then the 2 games in December, the 2 conference games at Iowa, home against Illinois. Big Ten ACC Challenge. You got Georgia Tech. We got DePaul coming up, and then Northeastern before we get into the conference play. But 3-1 start. Obviously, the Dayton loss is a bummer, but that's a solid Dayton team.
It's too. I mean, like we've talked about, this is a really exciting team with a bunch of disparate pieces that is waiting for a hurt player to come back, and is still finding all the pieces and combinations to make this work. And you hope that you're going to have ugly nights like the EIU game as this is all coming together. And the hope is that everyone continues to grow and gel, and Collins figures out his best lineups, his best situational ball, his best crunch time rotation, and that this all gets sorted out. And we have no reason to believe that it won't. We've seen all the potential of this team, and we know the pedigree of this team. And again, hopefully Brooks coming back will be like the final missing piece.
Is there anything else to talk about tonight before we get out of here?
As long as we're talking hoops, let's give a shout to women's basketball. Sure. This is a team that, as we know, had a rough year last year, and then started this season absolutely kneecapped by the fact that they were without Melanie Daly and Kaylee Walsh, and that led to a really rough 2-game start to the season for the Cats, and that was unfortunate. But they had, I think, Daly coming back for part of the game. I think before that, the second game, and due to having an unbelievable shift from Daly again in this game, and 9 titanic minutes from Kaylee Walsh, Northwestern mounted an unbelievable comeback against Utah, a Utah team Big 12 team that came in undefeated. Northwestern was down. I'm not forget exactly how much they were down, but they stormed, they clawed all the way back. And again, we mentioned Walsh played 9 minutes. That included, they gave it to her with the game on the line as time was, I don't think as time expired, but with time running out, with only a few seconds left on the clock. She went to work in the low block, put together an unbelievable move, and hit the game-winning bucket. It was a huge win for this team. That is a Utah team that is probably going to be good this season. Huge comeback, huge win. And again, for a team that really, the cards, just things in no way were working in their favor at the start of this season, and that's coming off a year that was really rough. This was a huge win for them, and I hope that it really allows them to build some positive momentum.
Yeah, you mentioned Melanie Daly. She had 23 on the night. Grace Sullivan puts 16 down, 6 for 6 from the line, 5 of 8 from the floor. And obviously as Kaylee Walsh gets more and more healthy, she only played 9 minutes, like you said, but 7 points, and that was pretty critical down the stretch.
And again, it's an unbelievable bucket. It's just low post excellence. They gave it to her with the game on the line. She knew exactly the situation. She knew the move that she was going to run. She got the exact shot that she wanted and put it up. It is a big time player.
Got a game Saturday against Harvard, and then they get Loyola Chicago on next Tuesday, the 26th, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So,
what one last note on that Utah game? Utah was a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament last year.
Yeah, I mean it's a big win. Like can't be understated. And hopefully, again, like you said, like with Harvard and I think Loyola on deck, that's a chance to build some real positive momentum.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else to talk about?
Just to reiterate, Beer Miscuous, come on back. It's been a couple weeks since we were there, but we will be there 2:30. And I know that like for those of you who have come, I think you know that the kind of the cool crowd that we've had there. I think we're expecting most of those people to be coming. And if anyone hasn't come to this point in the year, come on out. It's fun. We will probably be down in the lower level. It's been a great place to watch the game. We usually have some food, usually some baked goods. It's a really good time.
And drop us your 5-star reviews. Apple Podcasts is probably the best because you can actually leave some comments. But even just a 5-star review in Spotify or any of the other apps is super helpful to your fellow Northwestern brethren in finding this podcast and our stuff getting promoted and highlighted for folks who might be interested.
Yeah, just at Westlaw Pirates on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. Any social media network. We're at Westlaw Pirates. So send us your 5-star comments and get entered into a drawing for a couple men's basketball tickets. So with that, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, like I say, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube now, all at Westlaw Pirates. And you can always email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics, and look for us in the west lot of Ryan Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Skasbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.